Hanya kepadanya ku kan berlari di saat ku bimbang dalam hidupku. Yang aku percaya dalam hadiratnya ada kekuatan yang baru. Walau ku melangkah dalam tekanan, badai pencobaan datang menghadang. Yang aku percaya dalam hadiratnya ada kekuatan yang baru. Ku kan terbang tinggi bagai raja wali di atas segala persoalan hidupku, dan aku percaya saat ku bersama Dia tiada yang mustahil bagi Dia. Ku kan terbang tinggi bagai raja wali di atas segala persoalan hidupku, dan aku percaya saat ku bersama Dia tiada yang mustahil bagi Dia. Tiada yang mustahil bagi Dia.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we come together in worship in remembrance of our brother, our uncle, and our friend. Our beloved late Gaban. Whom God has called to rest in Jesus on the 24th of March this year, 2020, at 5:15 in the evening. This comes to my memory an episode in my life many years ago. 55 years ago, to be exact. My dad rushed our mom to Kudat Hospital, and along the way, my dad was praying to God. Dad was crying and he was pleading to God. Dad was asking God to give our mom another chance. God give her another chance. And in between, our dad was crying. And in between, our dad was asking for forgiveness from our mom. And that was all through the journey until we reached Kudat Hospital. When we reached Kudat Hospital, our mom was immediately sent to the operating room and our dad and kakak ninis and the driver were asked to go somewhere because they have to get the blood from them. They have to donate blood for our mom. And I was left alone. Later on, our mom came back, but she was alone. In no time, our mom began to feel the pain. And she wanted to sit up. She wanted to bring her head up and her chest up. But she was tied, her hands were tied, and her feet were tied. And she was gasping for breath. And in between, she was calling all our names, all her children's names, from Kakak Salim to Solin. She was calling one by one of us. She didn't forget anyone. And she was trying hard to rise up, to get up from the bed. And I told her, I said, no, mommy, no, cannot. You just operated, you cannot. But she won't listen. She just don't want to listen. She wanted to rise up. Later on, the doctor brought our dad and our kakak ninis and the driver to the room, and we watched our mom. Slowly, she gave her last breath. And then once more, the same scenery opened before my eyes. On the 24th of March, I found myself alone beside our brother's bed. And then I heard his last gasp. And I was there standing. Later on, I was joined by my son, Leo. And we were two together just standing. And we just don't know what to do. And Leo said, Mom, call your siblings. And I don't know how to call. I cannot even find the number. Finally, I got to Willin and I said, please tell the rest. Okay, let me get back to our mom's story. That night, we had to travel home to Goshen. And we were taking along with us the lifeless body of our mom. And we reached home night. Along the road, I heard my dad talking to the driver. He said, "Kano ka magumuli? Gumuli kito. Gumuli to. May sambayang." He said, "Let's go back to church. Let's go back to church. Life has no meaning," he said. esa rati compasión. Life is so fragile. Let's get back to church. Let's get back to God. Yes, the driver got back to church. Later on, he did. But our dad, the next Sabbath, he was there in church. And our dad went to testify. He asked for forgiveness. And that same week, he planted a tree to remember, in remembrance of his repentance, and witnessed by Pastor Jason and many others, and me too. I was there. That was the turning point of our dad. He came back to God and he never turned back anymore. He was faithful to the end. Early this year, in January, I received a message from our old classmate by the name of Mr. Richard Kilus. He was asking me how Jackson was. I said, Jackson is still very ill, but he's now at home. I'm taking care of him. Then he told me that he has met Jackson in the Lotong hospital, and he told Jackson to come back to God. And Jackson right and then obliged, so they prayed together. The next day, Jackson fell into a coma, and he was rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, ICU. And he was in coma for several days. And during his coma, he was anointed. When the doctors removed our brother's life support that morning, that Sabbath morning, the doctors asked all the siblings to come and see our brother. I was there too. We were all there except a few. And to our greatest joy, we found our brother. He was still breathing after his life support was removed. And the doctor said, from now onwards, you siblings have to know how to look after your brother. So he asked us to organize ourselves, the sisters here in KK. The four of us, myself, Eileen, Willin, and Patricia. The doctor organized us, helped us to organize ourselves and to have the routine, because night and day we have to take care of our brother Jackson. And I took up the challenge to look after him for the first night. That was on Sabbath night. And we did that rotation until our brother Jackson was ready to be discharged from the ICU. When he was about to be discharged from the ICU, the doctors asked again, said, your brother Jackson is about to be discharged from ICU. But he is no more the same Jackson that is before. From now onwards, he will need 24 hours care. Who of you can do that? So again, I thought, and I volunteered. I said, I will take care of Jackson, because I'm the eldest of the siblings in KK. So I said, doctor, I will take care of him. And that was how I got Jackson to the house. And I took care of him. He was okay for a few days. And then he began to move. And when he started to move, he wanted to stand up, sit up, exercise, sit up. He cannot wait to sit up. Okay, and in February, his old sickness was back. It's hard to breathe, and his temperature was coming up. And he was back to the hospital again, back to Queen Elizabeth. We stayed there for another 2 more weeks. Then we sent him home. After 2 weeks, we were sent home. After a while, 2 days after that, his temperature began to soar up again. Temperature every day. Until his antibiotics was finished, but his temperature was on. Then he was hard to breathe again, even with his oxygen here in the house. So we had to send him back to hospital. And he was admitted because he had water inside and outside of his lungs. And they have to do a procedure for him. Okay. We waited for that procedure until that was done, and then we had to wait for his bed, because he could not have a bed. And then we have to go to Queen again, to Queen 1, where there was a bed for him waiting. But then we were met by the lockdown, and we all sent back home before his medicine was finished. Our brother did not stay long. He stood another week more after coming back from the hospital, and that was the last hospitalization for him. He bade us goodbye on the 24th of March. - 2020. Yeah, that was very, very hard. Indeed, very, very hard. But my siblings, I'm sure you're all the same. We all miss our brother. We grieve for our loss. He was a very kind brother to us. I wish to share you all one text that has comforted me all through. The text is found here in 1 Thessalonians 4 verse 13. God says here, But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. I read it one more time. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. God was telling us here, God is telling us here, that we do not need to be sorrowful, we don't need to be sad, because God said, they are asleep in Jesus. Those asleep are the dead in Jesus. Meaning here, they are asleep in Jesus. And you have the hope of the resurrection. You don't need to be sorrowful. You don't need to be sad. God said. You don't be like those who have no hope. They will be sad, but you don't be sad, God said. So this is the most comforting verse that has been with me, has uplifted me. Every day I see my brother's empty bed. I see his clothes. I see his medicine. I see his wound care and his blanket, his pillows, and the heart is hard to forget, but I always make my heart happy again. I said, they are sleeping in Jesus, and one day we'll see him again. We'll see them again, all loved ones. Even our mom, last time when we lost her, it took me 3 years to forget our mom. And I don't know about our brother Jackson. It will take some time, but this is it. We all have to comfort ourselves. They're lying side by side together, laying side by side. We have laid them to rest side by side. Our dad, our beloved dad, the late Mantan Keke Asan Gaban, that's our dad, our beloved dad. And he lay beside our brother Jackson. And they lay beside, waiting for our Lord Jesus to come. And let's all be faithful. Let's all hope to be faithful so that we can meet them again. And you know, I comfort myself by many thoughts. My fond memories of my brother Jackson when he was a young boy. He was first, and then I was born next to him, and we are close. We play together, we grew up together. So he had some passions. He liked to go fishing, and so I had followed him a lot of time to go fishing, either using the net or using the fishing rod, which our dad made for Jackson out of bamboo rod. That was his fishing rod. Okay, and we used to go and fish together in the river. Our river was very near the house. Our house was near the river. Our house, we stayed was the new house, and that is the mission house now. We call the mission house. That is where we stayed. We were staying then, and the river. We have a small river running to the village, and the river that we used to go and fish was behind the house of Melanie. If you know where Melanie's house is, you just go to the back and you just imagine going down the steep slope to the river below. And that was where my brother and me sat down to fish. Our mom would tell us to tiptoe on the riverbank. Don't walk fast, otherwise the fish would swim away. And that was what we do. And we would sit down for an hour or so until we have some fish, and then we come home. And the fish that we take home are bacalao. I don't know whether we still have the bacalao now, but that was the kind of fish that we have plentiful at that time. Sometimes we go fishing with a net, small net, and that we go to the pond. There was a small pond near the river, and I remember our brother Jackson will go inside the pond, and he would use the net to chase the fish to the side of the pond, and then he would scoop it, and then he would give the fish to me. And I was there up on the dry land waiting for him to give me the fish. I carry a small bucket with me always. That was what our mom gave to me, the small bucket to carry along. Sometimes our brother Jackson will go fishing with some of his friends, and he would be able to take home more fish. And then he would bury some of those fish inside a sack of salt. The sack of salt was bought by our dad to feed our cows, but we also use it for preservative, and that is where our brother Jackson would put in his catch. And sometimes my mom would dig into that salt to look for some fish that she could cook for our food. That was a very sweet memory of him. And another passion of him was catching birds. He liked to catch birds, and if he caught them alive, he would take care of them, put them in the cage and take care of them. And sometimes, because at the back of our house there were a lot of tall bushes and short trees, and we find some nests there, bird nests, hanging in the leaves over the branches. So my brother would go and see the nest, what was inside there. If there was a birdie, or he would take the baby bird, take home, and he would take care of the baby bird. Sometimes he would be successful to nurse the bird until it was able to fly. And when the bird knows how to fly, it won't fly away so far. It will fly just around the house. That was what our brother did until he was separated from us when he was adopted by the Datu Stevens family. And he was hardly with us after that. He grew up with the family. He was only at home a few times a year during school holidays. But I thank God that God has given me the chance to take care of my brother Jackson. Because 12 years ago, our brother asked me a very serious question which I found so hard to answer. I could not answer him. For some time, I kept quiet. He asked this question to me. Said, Isay, Madi, tamang desisyon sa manu. Dia bilang, who is going to take care of Jackson next time? That was his question. And he did not ask me 1 time, 2 times, but he asked me many times until I felt that he was asking me. And so I said, Dad, I will take care of Jackson. Don't worry, I will take care of him. And our dad kept quiet. From that time onwards, he kept quiet. He never mentioned of Brother Jackson anymore to me anymore, not anymore, until he passed away. And thankfully, I was able to fulfill that promise to our dad. And to all my siblings, if you cherish anything from any special moments from our brother, all our siblings are big siblings, 17 of us. If any moments that you cherish from him, please do, just cherish. And our nephews and nieces, if you have anything that you cherish from our Uncle Jackson, please do remember him, okay? We will always remember him in our hearts. Thank you so much, and thank you, God.
Sinong sa depan kumatinsanan dako din nakabersama ay sambayang sa depan bayna. Terima kasih nih kuma ditono Nico ami karangan nido dat sedia di program. Adi senang dat sambayang toko tu menuan aku tono de peluang dat sambayang untuk penutup pitit sambayang toko sa depan bayna katunggan. Tama dahil sampai sang sagam berusaha. Terima kasih. Tu naman ay peluang untuk bagaimana naman ay kasihan. Terima kasih dari dit berakat ni ketahapan dahai kembali telah. Oh Tuhan, dari kau 34 telah dikenalkan keadaan terpilih dahai. Kami sebab dahai dari timung dan telah benar di sumbayang kembali dia. Terima kasih kembali dia sebab muka menjaga ni hai. Menuan ni hai dia ada kekuatan dan selama itu di nakotong kaya di tampilnya dahai. Lan dahai dan menuan dahai tampilnya dahai di peluang percaya hai kada banyak di bersama yang Tuhan main supaya dahai itu terkasih doa dan kemudian di besok main supaya ada petunjuk di hai begitu it setan dit salah dit perbuatan dia tadau Tuhan supaya ada insan tadau nga persamai hai dia ada hilang surga korubah kang hadit di tampilnya hai tunai dan dosa dan katalib Tuhan kami tini ketinggalan dahai bisa mengalami Yesus memang sedang. Amin.